People are taking photos like crazy, taking videos like crazy. When we're looking at our backlog of content services that we're powering all across the world in North America, Asia, Europe, we're seeing that there are some operator partners of ours who have up until 95% of the content volume that people are bringing into personal cloud is videos these days. And then there are others where 80% is photos, but it's varying, and the part of the video is getting bigger. So these two trends are the major factors behind personal cloud growth. And we know of big brands like Apple and Microsoft and Dropbox. They all together claim that they have about 600 million users or so, and it's getting multiplied by 100 million in every quarter. Now, like I said, my belief is that much of these so-called users are totally passive. They don't necessarily use it. When I speak with people and I ask them, okay, so you have iCloud, how often do you use iCloud? Or how often do you use your Dropbox or SkyDrive? It's very rarely. And I think it's for a good reason. These are utilities that you only call upon every once in a while, but it's not something that you go back to every day or every other day to experience your content. Whereas Instagram, my son lives on Instagram. That's the only thing he does, in addition to WhatsApp, right? By the way, he's one of our beta users of our new generation cloud, the most critical one of them all. So they are excellent tools, no doubt about it. They are automatically transferring content to the cloud. So when I take a photo, instantaneously that new photo goes into the cloud, it's backed up, and I can share it. Of course, the same applies. You're behind your desk at your office. You write a new document, you store it, off it goes to the cloud, and you have access to it from many different devices. I was just having a chat with an eye surgeon yesterday in Helsinki who said that, is it really so that, because I'm working at these different eye surgery hospitals and I have just this simple Excel and it's on my phone, that if I store the new hours that I've worked at this hospital, that it actually goes into the cloud, and then I can have a look at it at the next hospital that I go to, and I can keep up with the same document from many different devices. And for him, this was like magic, turning water into wine. But it's actually a very basic use case of personal cloud. But not so many people have seen that magic, and they should. It's great. And sharing through email and social media like Twitter and Facebook, it's dead easy with personal cloud. And you can indeed have access to that content from many different devices. Although, I have to say, iCloud only supports an Apple world. Maybe 3-4 years ago, there were more people who felt that Apple can solve every single problem on Earth, from famine to floods to pretty much anything. But these days, we see that Android is actually clearly the market leader, for instance, in smart devices. So I think it's wrong to go with an assumption that iCloud could solve all your needs. Maybe it solves some of your needs very well, but it doesn't really run all the way to the goal or finishing line. Same way, if you think of SkyDrive, of course, the main driver is a Microsoft ecosystem. But they do fall short on certain things, and one of them is that many of the cloud services and personal cloud services, like Evernote, are really, really good for one thing. Or Flickr, it's really good for photos, potentially. Or Instagram, it is just photos and videos. But it doesn't really bring all your stuff together. I'll come back to that in a moment. Another one is that there's some content that doesn't behave very well on all your devices. So for instance, if you happen to have an iPad and you're trying to watch a Flash player video, I think you get frustrated pretty soon when you click on that link which says that upgrade your software, and then it says time and again that Apple doesn't support Flash player. So something needs to be done so that you can actually view and deliver, for instance, videos that work on every device. And then finally, in the age of Edward Snowden and the National Security Agency, people are starting to get more worried about privacy than they've ever been before. We've just taken it for granted that these big names that we're trusting, the Googles and the Apples and the Microsofts and the Dropboxes, they're fine and they're okay, and I've got nothing to hide. But people are starting to think again. And one more area where personal cloud services today are falling short is that they think that one cloud does it all. That's how we see it. So if you've got Dropbox, Dropbox does it all for you, and you want to capture everything into Dropbox. If you have iCloud, you know, that's the one thing, the silver bullet that does it all. But that's not the way it goes. I think that people have the right to select the cloud services they want to use, but they should still be able to see all of their photos and videos and music in one place, if they so wish, and know that it's all backed up. And whatever you share is shared in a way that you're on top of it, and not somebody leaking your photos to a commercial advertisement or something else. That would be not nice, to say the least. So there's a whole host of cloud services out there, and they all try to solve all of the world's problems so that everybody comes to them and them alone. Now, you know this picture. It's from a movie, 1984, and if you really think of it, George Orwell, he was an optimist, right? We thought he was a gloomy, he came from a dark place, right? But if he knew what the intelligence agencies, especially in the West, can do these days, to find out every single email you're sending in the United States of America, every single call you make, not the contents of the call, not the contents of the email, but the metadata. Who sent it, to whom, at what time, you know, from where. They know everything, and they record everything for 365 days. And then they will combine it with what you've done in Dropbox, what you've done on Microsoft services or Google. The big players in the US, in the online services, they do not like what's going on and how they are forced, in the interest of national security, to submit consumer content and consumer information to authorities. Even, you know, without legal court orders, but providing backdoors into their system. You know, that somebody can scan at their will what people have. That's a spooky thought. But that's just one side of it. Then there are companies like, on the lower left-hand corner here, there's an example of a guy who was wondering on Twitter how it's possible that he sent himself a photo that he had taken of his bike, and then on that email, when it arrives into his Gmail, it has a bike ad on the side. So does Google look at your content? I think they do, right? Does that make you shiver? I think it should. But people are going along with this because it's free, right? I trust them. It's okay. It's cool. And the National Security Agency, it's doing only good things for me, right? I'm a born skeptic in that way. In Finland, we hate authorities to look after us and tell us how to do things and have access to our stuff anytime they want at their will. You gotta have a legal court order and nothing else matters. A real criminal investigation and having our legal counsels look at that demand and only submit any information if it's according to the very strict Finnish privacy law and the European privacy law, by the way. Another one is that big names like Dropbox are being used to spread malware, so viruses. And you know, it can be done very easily. You store something onto Dropbox, you share content through a link, and you think, hey, it comes from Dropbox, right? It must be okay. You click on the link, and an exploit gets into your device. It can be a mobile device, it can be a laptop, but an exploit gets into your device and your device does something for somebody else that you don't want to do. It has to do with your banking, or you're turned into a bot in a botnet, or whatever, something you don't want. And then there's, of course, the Instagrams who one day say that they own the rights to your photos that you store into Instagram, and they can sell those for other purposes. And then on the next day, they say, no, we didn't mean to say that. We didn't mean to say that. Yeah. So it's pretty creepy. And George Orwell would be ashamed of his optimistic attitude and view of the world. We also ran a study earlier in the year, and the same thing came out. People are extremely worried about their privacy, even much before the PRISM and the Snowden revelations. So it's your content, right? On the right side here, you've got things that are related to the fact that who can actually access my content. And then on the left side, you've got some worries around how is my content or my data about me, who I am, used commercially. Many worries. I won't go into all of the details. I'm just saying that there are basically 3 types of threats towards your data and your person, and they're hackers, criminal hackers. They're governments or intelligence agencies, basically doing good things for us, and it may be activists of some kind. Okay? These are the 3 groups that you can roughly categorize people who may have something fishy that they're planning against you. Of course, you need to have your devices and your content secured. Always use firewalls, always have antivirus software up in your devices, always have all your software updated, and use common sense. Nothing beats common sense. If somebody's asking for your banking credentials, they're hardly doing something good for you. Then there are human things like, somebody's running your service, like if we would be running a personal cloud service for you. So can our operations team, my operations hosting team, can they have a look at your photos if something goes wrong? Of course not, they shouldn't. In any case, the amount of people who are working with your service and who can have access to the system must be limited to the absolute minimum, and they have to go through thorough auditing and training to be able to do so. Yes, these concerns can be addressed. There is no one single thing that does it all for you. You can use encryption. You can use technologies like obfuscation, of course firewalls, antivirus. Obfuscation, by the way, means that if you store, for instance, something into our content cloud, the file name is changed, and we change it into something totally incomprehensible. So if you say that this is a picture of my wife in bikinis, oops, she doesn't have the top, the name of that file name is changed into something completely different, which is illegible and non-comprehensible to a normal person. That's obfuscation. So all sorts of technical protection. Of course, no intentional backdoors. Have you ever heard, by the way, a big online provider say that, yeah, we've actually implemented a backdoor? Of course, nobody admits to it, but forcefully, their hands put behind their backs, the major players in the US have had to do so, including Yahoo, where Marissa Mayer, their CEO, said that they face 2 possibilities. 1, they collaborate with the US government, or 2, they go to jail. Lavabit, the provider of secure email, the guy, he had a spine, the guy who was running the company. He was running the service that Edward Snowden was using. The government was forcing him to give the encryption keys to Edward Snowden's, or to get to the metadata of Edward Snowden's communications. He said that he won't do it. They pressured him. He quit the whole company. He wouldn't do it. That would have been treason against the 400,000 other customers that they had to give out encryption keys. Well done, man. And then there are soft values like privacy culture, processes, and so forth. And ensuring that customer is in control. I'm just saying one thing about this. When you share something, do you really know what happens to those shares in Facebook? Do you really honestly put your hand on heart and you know what happens? Say that you're friends with somebody. You know that your friend will see it when you're sharing something, right? But what if your friend likes something and that friend has another 700 friends? They see what they've liked. They once again get to the photo. What if they like something that you've liked or whatever? You know, the network is never ending. You really don't know where your sharing goes. You want to be in control of what you're sharing, right? We believe that for certain things, Facebook is just fine. Instagram is just fine. But if you really want to have a control, you should have something better. And the common sense. Always be suspicious online. And then on the previous slide, I was talking about business model transparency. You should know what are these people after. If they want you in iCloud, you read the book on Steve Jobs, and they say it very clearly. They want to tie you into their ecosystem, right? They're giving you good value, but what they really want to do is they want to tie you into the Apple ecosystem that you buy their every device and their every service. Fine, good, they're doing very well, but it's better that you understand it. If you're going for Google services, you of course understand that they're profiling you left, right, and center. I used to be CEO of a predictive analytics company, and we got a little bit of an understanding of what Google does on that front, and I have to say I got the creeps. I really got the creeps. They know so much more than any of us mere mortals would think. And then, of course, there are cloud services which take the attitude that we are the service, and that's it. It's good. You have our service, and then you need nothing else. So are we any better here in Europe? I dare say we are. We're one hell of a lot better. In Europe, we come from a culture where business doesn't necessarily come first, but the respect for the individual comes first, and the privacy of an individual comes first. In the US, it's very often so that business interests are first, and alleged terrorism or whatever. I have to remind you of something that has to do with the good intentions of intelligence agencies. If you have a look at the very last sentence here, it's turned out that in the US, officials within the National Security Agency have actually used the metadata and the capability to combine data from many different sources to find intelligence on their wives, their husbands, their lovers, what they're up to, who they're calling to, right? It's called love intelligence. And you know, this is like countering terrorism or looking after weapons dealers or drugs. Hardly. You know, you cannot allow people to have that kind of uncontrolled power on things. But we have much tighter legislation over here on privacy in Europe than they do in the US, and we don't have a national security agency overriding everything we do. I think this is a much better place. Won't say anything more about the threat report that we've just come out last week, other than 60% of the top 10 malware we're finding in the market is about exploits. 60%, it's about exploits. Exploit in a malware scenario is the very first thing that happens. It's like the bomb that somebody drops into your system, and then it will explode. If it explodes and you go beyond the exploit, then there are always casualties, right? It may be your device or your content or whatever, or somebody else's network. So we're stopping most things already at the exploit level right now. And it's a good place to, you know, it's like using a condom instead of being in surgery all the time. Then just stopping malware at the roots. We much rather stop them at the exploit level than trying to fix things afterwards. It's not only a negative. We've actually found this is the first half of 2013, this last one. This is antivirus or AV test from Germany. They're showing that 180 million antivirus samples have come across in the first half of this year, which is the same amount as all the years before, if you go at this rate also in the second half. So in one single year, we're getting more malware than ever, in the history of malware. But that's not a negative only. We're stopping most of it at the exploit level, so they never get to explode in our systems. And secondly, we're using cloud technology, which we can refer to back quickly. So it's not the device security software that tries to resolve everything. That software is connected to the cloud all the time, our lab, and the lab has all the time the latest information, and it keeps the client up to date at all levels. If we didn't have this connection to the cloud and our lab, we wouldn't be able to stop as much as we are right now. Personal cloud is moving to business, and it's another way to use the same technology. Bring your own device is a very important thing. IT managers in many companies are now pulling their hair from their head because people are coming in with their own iPads and their own smart devices and so forth, and they're doing work stuff with those devices. How do you control that? Consumerization of IT, the kinds of services that you're used to, the Instagrams and the Facebooks and Gmails and so forth, they're so dead easy and nice to use that you'd like to have that same kind of stuff at work. If you look at Salesforce.com these days, it's a very chatty, internety type of a product. Hats off to Salesforce.com. Excellent work. It's a good example of consumerization of IT. And then from internal IT, of having server farms in even smaller companies, you go into the cloud and you only buy it like a utility. And finally, from email and the endless large files that you're attaching into emails, you're able to send links to people, and also you're able to create like virtual content rooms where assigned people have access to the same content or documents, for instance, and presentations, and they can work on them together collaboratively. So project documentation, reducing email spamming, and accessing all the work documents from wherever you are. Final words, a few words about what we're doing. We have a cloud service, which we call United in F-Secure. And this is what we're saying, that we like what Dropbox and SkyDrive do, but where's the privacy and fun? We think that you shouldn't be drooling of sleep when you're using these services. So we've created an extremely content-centric user experience, which is dead easy, looks the same way on every single device. Every single major operating platform and major device, popular device in the market is supported. Windows Phone 8, Android, iPhone, iPad, Android tablets, Windows PCs, Mac OS, and even if you just want to have access through a web user interface, you can have access to the same platform or service, organize, consume, share content, not only connecting all your content from these devices, but you can connect other clouds, which you may have guessed. So we allow people to connect their content from, for instance, Facebook into this very same service. You have pictures on Picasa, here they are. You have content in Dropbox, they're all here. You can see it all in one single place, organize and share in a controlled manner. So we believe it's an engaging and fun user experience. That's the kind of feedback we've got. You have all of your content in one single place. You can find it, you can organize it, you can share it. Of course, you can avoid these large email attachments. You just send a link to a certain document or a set of documents. And it's built for safety and privacy. I'll come back to that in a second. I'll skip this. This is a commercial. We'll go over that. Finally, a few words about safety and privacy. I talked about the 200 kilometers an hour to a wall. These are the sorts of things we're doing to avoid you from running into that wall. You are in control of your content. Like we say in our ads, it's your stuff, not theirs. EU and Finnish laws, or EU directives and Finnish privacy laws followed. It's all private by design, transparent privacy policy, so you can see what we do with your content. We built the system architecture in a way for those who are into technology that metadata is in one place, content is in another place, account information is in a third place, and encryption keys are in a fourth place. And these are completely separated from each other, and it's impossible for somebody, if somebody would intrude into the system, they can't make any sense out of this, because you cannot connect the dots. We're the only one who can do that with our capabilities. All data is encrypted, of course, in transit and while it is in the storage. And if somebody would be forcefully attacking your account, we will block it automatically. And finally, we're defending your content all day long, every year. Everything is scanned for malware, the only service in the world in cloud which does this. You cannot spread any malware through our system. Of course, if you lose your device, you can get your content back. And of course, if you have a mobile, for instance, an Android phone, you can get your contacts also back and SMSs. You switch a device and you can get your contacts directly into the new device. And then, of course, we have vulnerability audits and intrusion detections in place. Just to give a few examples. Now, finishing off, what are the, let's say, the 4 key messages? Number 1 is that personal cloud services are built on trust. Otherwise, people keep on using these external hard disks and their own devices for storing documents. But that would be a pity because the benefits are clear. Secondly, there are many popular services out there in the US where the privacy and the security of those services has been compromised, and there is ample evidence of it. Third, look for European alternatives. Be it Poland, be it Germany, be it from Finland, look for European alternatives. Even so, eavesdropping by NSA is possible, but make sure that everything is encrypted. It's like a minefield. It will not stop NSA, but it will bloody hell make them much more slower to get to your stuff. They have 30,000 people, by the way, working on decryption. And finally, personal cloud services are not only about safety and privacy and trust. Once you have the trust, it should be engaging and fun, and you have that right to have fun when you're using the services. That's all, thank you.